Hey y'all, like I said, I just have a quick little thought, a little addendum to the things that I've been sharing with Job. When I think about the book of Job and I think about the the lessons that I believe God was ultimately trying to teach both Job and his friends, Zophar, Bildad, and Eliphaz. With Job, as we talked about, he was trying to let him know you can be upset about a lot of things and you can express a lot of things, but you have to understand that God is never wrong, and there is a limit that we can reach where he literally and simply goes beyond our capacity and our ability to understand, but he has to be trusted. He's operating at a level that we can't look into. There's a an idea that we talk about in either IT or in engineering. It's a concept called the black box, where essentially you can come up with some type of computer program or some type of algorithm, and you can look at the computer code and you can see how the computer code is making certain things happen within the program. But there might be a section of the computer program that we say is in a black box, meaning it is some type of proprietary information that the person who created this program, they don't want you to know what's inside of there. They don't want you to know how they make certain things happen. So if you imagine, just imagine like a conveyor belt, old-fashioned conveyor belt, and somebody puts a stuffed uh, bunny on the conveyor belt, and then that bunny rides along the conveyor belt, and then it goes inside of this area that's kind of like a black box, and then when it comes out of the other side, it's a live rabbit, maybe some type of magic trick. But that black box represents, we don't want you to know what happened inside of this box. We don't, you can see what happens before and you can see the results after, but we don't want to share with you what happened inside of the black box. That's for us to know how we're making stuff happen, how we're doing stuff. So God does a lot of things in a black box. Um, and I think for two reasons. Sometimes there's a black box because there might be some things that happen inside the black box that you could understand, but um, it wouldn't be the same effect that he wants to have. He wouldn't accomplish what he wants to accomplish by you knowing everything that happened inside of the black box. But I think even more often, things are inside of a black box because if he opened up the black box and you looked inside, you'd have no idea of how that even works or what it is inside of there, how it functions, what it means. The stuff inside of God's black boxes are things that, as a human being right now, prior to you being changed in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, and your corruption puts on incorruption and your mortality puts on immortality, until you reach that point where you can, like the Apostle Paul talked about in 1 Corinthians 13, where you reach a point where you are able to know God to the same degree that you are known, or at least begin the process of starting to understand some things. Until we reach that point, the state that we are in right now as human beings, our mental capacity, we, if God opened up the black box and you looked inside of it, either you would be stunned and just faint, you wouldn't be able to handle it, or you would look at it and your mouth would just be hanging open and you just put a dunce cap on and you'd be like, duh, and you just wouldn't understand it. So God has got some stuff in the black box. But I do have this question, and Tiff and I talk about this a lot. Why does God seem to do things sometimes that are more difficult than what it seems like they need to be? Why can't he accomplish some of the same things that he accomplishes in a much easier way or in a less painful way? And so the book of Job kind of makes me think about this question. And so I'm just going to share something with you just real quick, just to uh, see if it'll help you or bless you. And then I'm going to let you be on your way. Well, Tiff and I talk often about how there are sets of rules and laws that God has put in place which govern our universe. And there's a sense in which God, quote unquote, can't do certain things. Not because he's impotent. We all know that he's omnipotent, but because he subjects himself to rules and laws that he has established. The number of things that he can do are infinite, but the number of things that he does do are finite because there are things that he can do, but he won't do because it wouldn't be right for him to do. There are many things that most of us have the capacity to accomplish, but we would still say, I can't do that. It's not because you literally can't. It's just because you can't and still be a law-abiding citizen. Tons of things that you can do, but wouldn't be right for you to do. So imagine if you're hungry, you can wait outside of a McDonald's, right? If you were really hungry, and you can wait for an older person, a senior citizen, a little old lady. You can wait for her to come walking out of McDonald's with her McDonald's bag, and then you can snatch her bag, snatch her drink out of her hand, snatch her Big Mac out of her hand, her bag of French fries or whatever. You can jump in your car and be gone before she can identify you. Most of us can do that. You have the physical capability. You have arms and hands that are fast enough to snatch that old lady's McDonald's bag and be gone. But even though you can do that, most of us would say, I can't do that. Right? Even though you literally can, you would say, I can't. So omnipotence means you can do anything. It doesn't mean that you are willing to do everything that you can do. So this understanding explains at least two things that we wonder about God, that we often wonder. Number one, why he won't just fix stuff or change stuff or make something happen or whatever. Why won't he just do all the kinds of things that you would do if you had his power? Well, number one, he doesn't use his power to do all the things that you would do with his power because he has infinite intelligence and infinite wisdom to accompany that power. And he knows all the rules which he abides by, and you don't. So he knows a whole bunch of stuff that you don't know. So you think that if you had all that power, you would do X, Y, and Z. But if you had all that power, along with having all of his knowledge, then you would know that even though you have all that power, doesn't mean that you should take that power and do things the way that you think as a human being you should do them. So let's thank God that we never had that much power without that much intelligence and wisdom, which also manifests itself in this world where when you do see people who have a great deal of power relative to other people and they don't have the wisdom to go along with it, we all know that that typically turns out to be a disaster. So imagine us having God level power and being as stupid as we are. That would be really bad. Even if we didn't have bad intentions, but just being as ignorant as we are with that kind of power, it would be bad. It would be bad. And number two, God's use of providence. God's providence is his way of working things together behind the scenes in that black box in a way that causes him to still do whatever he wants while still playing within the rules. I want to say that again. God's providence is his way of working things together behind the scenes in a way that causes him to still do whatever he wants while still playing within the rules. That's why so often we look back at many of the things that God has brought to pass or done in our lives, and we can see in hindsight how he put it all together and how he was working through people and places and circumstances to configure things with the ultimate outcomes that he wanted or that he may have promised you. But it seems like he could have done things in a much easier fashion or in a more straightforward way and just exuded his power, to make it happen without jumping through so many hoops. Well, he can do that, but he won't if it violates some rules or laws that you may or may not know or understand. So, how does God still ultimately get what he wants? Or how can he bring to pass everything that he has already promised and declared when all the devils know exactly what he wants to do if he's not going to always just use brute force? So if his enemies know his plans, and if they know and understand a lot more of the rules and laws that we as humans know and understand, plus they know what God's plans are, and unlike God, they are willing to break the rules, demons and evil spirits, and they don't care about the laws. They will break as many as they can. Then why can't they stop God from bringing his will to pass if God is unwilling to just use brute force to get his will done, if he's going to operate within the laws that he has set up? And it is for this reason. It is because another way to describe God's providence is to say that he is working within the rules and the laws of the universe to play something that would be on the level of master level chess, while Satan is playing checkers. And we humans, we're playing Candyland, chutes and ladders. But God is playing chess, where everything else is playing checkers. So God has got all these things working inside of a black box where you cannot see from the outside how he's moving and shaking and doing all these things behind the scenes. But he knows how to work everything to still get exactly what he wants, even though it's not always as straightforward as we want it to be. Even though he doesn't always just plow right through everything, just using brute force and power. I'm going to make this happen. That's what we want to see very often. But sometimes things take longer, and sometimes things are so much more, require so much more intricacy for God to bring his will to pass. And that's really because he's got rules and laws, and he's playing within those rules and laws, but he's so good at it that he still always gets what he wants, ultimately. And as far as Satan is concerned, as Psalm 112 says, the desire of the wicked shall perish. He will gnash with his teeth and melt away. All right. I love y'all.